Hi guys, good evening. Are you able to see and hear me? Hi Rajashri, hi Vishesh, hi Vagmi, hi Anamika on YouTube. I hope people who have joined us on YouTube are also able to see and hear me. Good evening Vishesh. Hi Vaibhav. Yes. Hi Satej. We are waiting for a couple of minutes for all of your friends to join. Then we will begin. If possible, write down on your groups to all your friends that the session has started. Join as soon as possible on YouTube. Hi Meghal, hi Nidhi, hi Tarushi, hi Manisha, Aryan, good evening, Tanisha, good evening. All right. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Aditya Shekhar. I am a graduate of National Law University, Jodhpur, and I take care of Get Set Law for IMS. Here we are discussing AILET 2021 strategy. As you might know, or you might have noticed that there are only 104, 105 odd days left for AILET, and this exam becomes extremely important for people who do not want to go out of Delhi or else it could be any other reason. Of course, the fact that NLU Delhi is one of the best universities imparting legal education is, of course, something which you would also want to consider if you are aiming for the top-notch universities in the in the entire country. So this session is basically about your strategy, which you will have to decide or rather understand before your actual AILET examination happening sometime in June. Here we will try and understand what kind of questions were asked in early 2020 and what was the approach when it comes to 2020 and its question solving to get admission into NLU Delhi. Right. So all set. I hope everybody is able to hear me, see me, and see the screen. Hi Disha. Hi Sherik. Hope all of you are able to hear me, see me, and see the screen. Hi Vanshika, good evening. All right, so let's begin. Now, let's firstly look at the competition. Now, it started back in 2007 when the AILET Act was established, establishing a university like NLU Delhi. So, back in early 2010, 2009, the competition was somewhere around 6,000, 6,500. It has now increased to the extent that it has gone to 20,000. So, out of 20,000, as of today, the number of seats, when I include all the categories, are somewhere around 110, 115. For the general category student, we are looking at somewhere around 55, 60 odd seats. So that is the amount of competition which you have to face if you want to get into one of the best universities in the entire country, which is NLU Delhi. So just imagine the ratio, which is 400 to 1. In fact, if I compare it to common law admission test as well, the competition will be slightly lesser if you compare it to the best law universities. So as of now, when it comes to the placement and other things, I would rate NLU Delhi slightly above NLU Jodhpur, but slightly below NUJS Kolkata for that matter. So if I'm looking at the top five national law universities, of course, NLU Delhi will come in there. And if I'm looking at the competition, to gauge the competition vis-a-vis common law admission test, of course, NLU Delhi is way higher because of the number of seats, which is just 55 odd seats for the general category students. So you can imagine the kind of competition which you'll have to face to get into one of the best universities, and you should understand the kind of trouble, the kind of mehnat which you'll have to do to get into this university. Right. Let's look at the cutoffs here. So in 2018, the general category cutoff was somewhere around 71.25. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe 49.5 and 48.25 respectively. 2019, the cutoff slightly increased to the extent that 72.75 was the general cutoff. SC and ST again was 49.75 and 50. Surprisingly, ST cutoff was rather increased and was more than what SC cutoff was in 2019. In 2020, the general category cutoff again increased to 75.25, which is slightly significant. Now, just for the sake of the students who have not given AILET before, this is an examination which will test you in 90 minutes and you are supposed to solve somewhere around 150 questions. So the amount of time which will take to solve one question again will be slightly lesser when you compare it to common law admission test. Having said that, there are stark differences in the pattern. Of course, you might have already known right away, as in the moment you start solving the questions, you will realize that the difficulty is slightly higher, but then the descript, as in the length of the questions, are slightly lesser. So, of course, when I'm looking at the score of 75.25 out of 150, this is half, right? But then considering the difficulty of AILET, this is where most of us fail to understand that this examination tests quality over quantity. So you will always have to back your own knowledge and go ahead and pick the best option suitable. You're not supposed to go ahead and pick many questions, but when it comes to AILET, the idea is to test students, half the total amount of questions which you're supposed to correctly mark is slightly lesser, but then the approximation when it comes to the correct answers is slightly higher. So you have to understand that AILET is an exam which is always testing quality over quantity, and you can understand that with the amount of competition which AILET has. Right. Now let's look at the competition back in 2020. So the total number of aspirants were not 20,000; it was 19,000 to be precise. The highest score was 102 out of 150. When it comes to the All India ranks, the top 50, the person who had scored 78 got the 50th rank, All India 50th rank. Similarly, 75.75 for the person who had got 70th rank, 75.25 who had got 80th rank, and 74.5 for the person who had got 90th rank. So you can imagine the kind of score which you should be targeting, and you can imagine the competition. Just 0.15 marks and you are out of the league. So the importance of every section here, holistically going about AILET, is something which you'll have to consider if you are taking an extremely competitive examination like AILET for that matter. All right, let's look at the pattern now. So this examination is conducted for NLU Delhi. Then we have other universities like North Cap University, Sushant University, etc. The examination date is 104 days from now. So we are looking at 20th June. Eligibility 45% in higher secondary or equivalent, and even lesser for SC and ST category students. So you just have to score 40% in your 12th and you will be eligible to take this examination. What is the format? So this is a paper-based examination, and of course, considering the corona guidelines by the government, this will be social distanced offline objective examination. The marking scheme +1 minus 0.25 for negative. The duration 90 minutes, which is 1.5 hours for 150 questions. If I look at the sections, English including comprehension includes 35 questions, logical reasoning contains 35 questions, math contains 10 questions, general knowledge contains 35 questions, legal aptitude contains 35 questions. So in total, we are looking at 150 questions to be solved in 90 minutes. Right. Now, this is the basic gyan which everybody has to understand before taking up the legal aptitude section when it comes to AILET. So, of course, the examination is made in such a way that it basically tries and understand whether the candidate is interested in studying law. So, research aptitude, problem solving ability, all of it will be tested. And how do this test it? By putting your analytical reasoning into consideration. So by taking it into consideration, they basically figure out whether a candidate is suited to undergo 5-year rigorous legal education. Weightage when it comes to legal aptitude section is 24% of the total 150 questions, so that comes around 35 questions. And when it comes to the difficulty level, again, it is considered slightly difficult if you compare it to other sections. So AILET itself is a very difficult examination when you compare it to other law entrance examinations. So for that matter, common law admission test, although has changed or rather transitioned its pattern, but still is considered to be slightly easier when you compare it to AILET. But then AILET has its own way of testing students. The premier institute which National Law University Delhi is, of course, has to have that distinction when it comes to other law entrance examinations. So here the kind of questions which are asked are slightly more difficult, be it legal aptitude section or any other section for that matter. Legal aptitude section again is considered to be slightly difficult when you compare the difficulty of other sections in AILET itself. Right. Now, awareness of contemporary legal and moral issues to apply general principles or propositions. This is a very generic gyan, but then yes, it is quite important to understand what is happening around you, and that's how you will get to know of the kind of questions which you can attempt in AILET. For that matter, in 2020, the legal GK questions were actually more than the legal reasoning questions. So you had 18 legal GK questions and 17 legal reasoning questions. So here, preconceived knowledge, prior knowledge of law, prior knowledge of things happening around you becomes extremely important for you to get into National Law University Delhi, because they're testing you a lot, especially when it comes to the legal affairs surrounding you. So always remember, you cannot take things for granted, especially when it comes to AILET. Of course, you cannot take that for common law admission test as well. But since the difficulty and the depth of knowledge which AILET is looking from you is slightly higher, so of course the kind of legal knowledge which you have to surround yourself is again slightly higher, right? Okay, I can see a few questions. Let me take them. Jia, yes, Jia, this is for 2021 aspirants. Rajashri, is the pattern similar to the old CLAT pattern? Sorry if my questions are repeated. I would say slightly similar, Rajashri, because again, in CLAT pattern, we were looking at legal reasoning questions, we were looking at legal GK questions, and we were looking at assertion reasoning questions. So, of course, that is the exact pattern which AILET asks or tests you on. It's just that when it comes to the difficulty level, it is slightly higher. It requires a little bit of extra analytical skills or extra thinking to solve these legal reasoning questions. So we will see how how AILET 2020 happened, and we will see how too many principles were given in just one question, and you were supposed to figure out what exactly is the principle which I should be putting in the question. So that way, it is slightly difficult when you compare it to the older CLAT pattern. I hope I've answered your query, Rajashri. Now, of course, when it comes to AILET, we are looking at two kinds of questions, principal fact-based questions and static and current issue legal GK questions. The other pattern could be reasoning assertion questions, but then sadly 2020 did not ask. So we will be focusing on this only, because reasoning assertion may, it's a very it's a it's just a template. You just need to understand the four options and you will be able to sail through the reasoning assertion question, provided you have some preconceived knowledge of law. So let's move ahead. Now, yes, when it comes to AILET 2020, the paper was moderately difficult and lengthy, comprised of around 17 legal reasoning questions and 18 legal GK questions. No legal assertion questions. Questions did require prior legal knowledge, and questions with multiple principles were also seen. So, of course, you have to understand that here we are looking at a pattern which is slightly difficult, guys. So we look at the kind of questions which were asked. We will see how 4 or 5 principles were asked in just one question. You were supposed to pick up the answer. So that way, AILET is slightly difficult, and you are supposed to condition your brain in a way that you are able to tackle these questions. How? By reading more of law. Right, I have got another question. I still haven't attempted AILET Mac, how to prepare. Yes, anonymous attendee, we will be discussing that only. But then before you attempt it, it's just that you will have to go and check out the past year paper. If you can do that, that will be wonderful. And it will definitely tell you how the questions were asked, and your approach will be slightly refined when it comes to attempting more. So do not take unwanted pressure. And I've seen a lot of students who say, "Sir, मेरा syllabus complete नहीं हुआ. What do I do? Should I even attempt mock?" I think slightly differently that ways, because be it AILET, be it common law admission test, your analytical skills are putting on test. That is the entire purpose of all these examinations. So that way, I think more than knowledge, I would want to understand how you are approaching the paper. So regardless of whether you have completed anything or not, go ahead and take at least one mock, just to see how you are faring, just to understand that. And you shouldn't be ashamed of however you perform. It's just that you should be able to analyze perfectly what exactly has happened. Is it good? Is it bad? All of that needs to be done. So for that, do not think too much before taking mock. Just look at the past year paper and go ahead and take it. Regardless of what you score, it doesn't matter. Taking the mock is more important. Anonymous attendee, I'll take up the questions after we have ended this session, Weber, because beach mein, if I keep on taking questions, it interrupt the entire flow of the class. So keep your questions till the last. I'll definitely take up all your questions. Right. So when it comes to the legal aptitude section, we are looking at a score of 22.5 plus out of 35. And this has to be done within 25 to 28 minutes. And that too is, that is also the extent of it. You cannot go beyond that, because we have to understand that AILET is a 90-minute test. So here, if you are losing out too much time in LA section, my advice would be to take a jump on some other section, because LA might be slightly lengthier that ways. And if you're already done with 27, 28 questions, it is highly recommended for you to go ahead and take up some other section, because that way you would be able to at least go ahead and take up smaller questions. So always look at, and this has been the average. So even if I look at 2019 ka paper, again was slightly difficult, not this lengthy, but then again a good attempt would be somewhere around 24, 25. So that is the kind of attempt. You are not supposed to go ahead and solve every question. 35 questions sabka nahi banne wala, and that way you will have to be smart and put your energy, put your time into something which can be solved quickly. So here comes the importance of GK, here comes the importance of math. You have to take a transition once you are done with the basic LA ka solving. So 25, 28 questions I'm done, I'll take a transition to either GK, math, or something which I can solve thoda jaldi. Right. So 2020, when I'm talking about, of course, 26 plus would be a very good attempt, and 22.5 plus will be a decent score. Now let's look at ABC approach. A lot of you might be knowing this ABC approach because this is our trademark, or rather, this is the thing which we pitch to every student, because this is the thing through which I think many students can take help and get good score. So of course, there are three kinds of questions here: ABC, A being easy, medium being B, and C being tough. So abhi karo, baad mein karo, और छोड़ दो questions. So abhi karo will be wherein you are taking out time for LA section and solving it. Baad mein karo is something which you think could be done later on after you solved every question. You are taking out some 5-7 minutes to just go ahead and revise your entire AILET ka paper. Then these questions come into picture. And chhod do are the questions which of course you have absolutely no clue about. So this is how your approach should be. Try and figure out whether you want to do a particular question or not. Do not straight away jump to a difficult question, because that way you'll be wasting a lot of time, especially when it comes to understanding the question. So 2-3 minute भी इसमें बहुत important है. And if you are wasting 2-3 minutes in two, 3 questions, 6 to 8 minutes are lost. So that way you'll have to be smart about it. Mark the questions, whether it's easy, whether it's moderate, whether it's difficult, and only then approach the section. All right. So of course, these are the kind of tips which will have to be incorporated when it comes to your entrance examinations, be it AILET, be it flat for that matter. So remember the ABC approach, try and distinguish, try and identify the kinds of questions. Read the questions before passage. That is again dependent on the student. So if you have absolutely no clue, when it comes to the kind of principles which are being asked, then of course you can go ahead and do that. But when you are required to go ahead and take up a simple principle fact based question, you will have to go ahead and take up the principle first, and only then you'll have to read the question. So when it comes to AILET, AILET is testing you more on the analytical side. So here you have to understand that whenever a principle fact based question comes, the question will ask you to give importance to the principle. So you cannot use your preconceived knowledge here. You have to apply the principle to the fact to come to a correct answer. So question reading, what it does is, initially question reading, what it does is it focuses your brain. So यहाँ पे passage नहीं होगा, यहाँ पे principle होगा. But it's just that it focuses your brain to look at and pick the important bits in the principle. So that way it helps some students. Some students might not get help from there, but then of course the crux of this point is you will have to read the principle before going ahead and solving the question, because this is an examination which is testing you more on the analytical side. And here we have to understand that if something is not written in the principle, and that concept you have read somewhere in your class, you have gone through through it somewhere on YouTube, it will not help you. That will be detrimental to your performance. So therefore take into consideration of all the principle which is given before you answer your question. Right, and then of course, the general bland gyan, which of course you can also figure out. So understanding the question thoroughly, reading all of it is important. Marking some parts. So this will be an offline examination, so that way you can mark as well. And always try and not use the extra knowledge which are there, especially when it comes to the legal reasoning questions. So principal fact based questions, mein, try and use your legal knowledge sparingly. All right, so let's go ahead and check out the 2020 AILET के कुछ questions. We'll see how the questions were asked here. So of course 35 questions. I told you the segregation. 18 questions from legal GK and 17 questions from legal reasoning. We will look at a few questions from reasoning and GK, and we will try and understand how the approach should be. All right, so this is the principle. Now, principle contains 5 principles. My God, just to read them, just to go ahead with them, it will take a lot of time. So, what will I do? I'll go ahead and look at the question first. Right? So, here Company called KLM Manufacturers Electric Equipment was a target of takeover by ABS Industries, blah blah blah, had issued a profit warning which had halved its share price. In May 2019, KLM's director made a preliminary announcement in its annual profits for the year up to March. This confirmed that the position was bad, share price fell again. ABS had begun buying up shares in large numbers in June 2019. The annual account, which were done with the help of accountant Dinesh, were issued to the shareholders, which now included ABS. ABS has reached shareholding of 30% of the company, at which point it made a general offer for the remaining shares. As the city court's rules on takeovers required, but once it had control, ABS found that KLM's account were in even worse state that had been revealed by the directors and the auditors. It sued Dinesh for negligence in preparing for the accounts and sought to recover its losses. This was the difference in value. There was a difference in the value between the company as it had and what it would have had if the accounts had been accurate. Which of the following answers is correct? No duty of care had arisen in relation to existing potential shareholders. The only duty of care to the auditors was to the governance of the firm. The nation is not liable as it was the case of pure economic loss in the absence of contractual agreements between. There are circumstances where an auditor will owe a duty of care in respect of reports produced. These are conditional that at the time of report is prepared, it is known by the auditors that the results are for a specific class and for a specific purpose. And ability to foresee indirect or economic loss to another person as a result of defendant's conduct automatically impose on the defendant a duty of care to avoid that loss. So let's quickly look at the principles here. So the first one is talking about negligence, right? Second one is talking about test of liability. Requires that the harm must be reasonably foreseeable. Result of the defendant's conduct, relationship of proximity must exist and it must be fair, just and reasonable to impose liability. Claimant must prove that harm would not have occurred but for negligence of the defendant. Duty of care is a legal obligation which is imposed on an individual requiring adherence to a standard of reasonable care while performing any acts that could forcibly harm others. Conversation between blah blah blah. This is not relevant. Alright, so what should be the answer here, guys? Go ahead and write down your answers on Zoom, on YouTube. What do you think should be the answer? Vedant, Anamika, Vanshika, I will answer all your questions, guys. Let's stick to our format here. We will take up a few questions and then I will be answering all your questions on an individual basis. So, what should be the answer here? According to you, please write down on the chat box. What do you think could be the answer here? Aditya, pick one, man. You're picking A, B. ऐसे कैसे चलेगा? Just pick one. What should be the answer? Vaibhav, Tanvi. Right. So the correct answer here is D. Right. We have to take into consideration the fact that what 2 and 3 say. So 2 says test of liability requires that harm must be reasonably foreseeable. Result of the defendant's conduct, relationship of proximity must exist and it must be fair, just and reasonable to impose liability. Claimant must prove that harm would not have occurred but for the negligence of defendant. Let's look at the facts here. What is happening is at this point ABS began a blah blah blah. Dinesh were which were done with the help of accountant Dinesh were issued to the shareholders, which now included ABS. ABS reached a shareholding of 20-30% of company, at which point it made a general offer for remaining shares. As city code rules on takeovers required, but once it had control, found that KLM's account were in an even worse state that it had been reviewed by the directors or auditors. Right? It sued Dinesh for negligence in preparing the accounts and sought to recover its losses. This was the difference in value between the company as it had and it would have had if the accounts had been accurate. So here, look at D. What it is saying is an ability to force indirect or economic loss to another person as the result of defendant's conduct automatically imposes on defendant a duty of care to avoid that loss. So here it is important for us to understand that whatever was happening was as a result of defendant's duty to take care of the loss, and if he has not taken care of the duty, then of course he would be held responsible. Right, and then comes another question. So let's look at this question now. Soman was student of PRQ University, met Pamela in a youth university and fell in love with her. Was not interested. Due to this, Soman went into emotional crisis. Started consulting a psychologist. On October 2018, someone murdered Pamela. Pamela's parents contended that only a short time prior, Soman had expressed his intention to murder their daughter to his therapist, Surana, a psychologist employed by the university. They further alleged that Surana had warned campus police of Soman's intention and that the police had briefly detained him but then released him. Pamela's parents filed a case of negligence against the police department and university official on two grounds: failure to confine Soman in spite of his expressed intention to kill Pamela, and failure to warn Pamela of her parents. Defendants maintained that they owed no duty of care to victim and were immune from the suit. Which of the following is incorrect? Police did not have the requisite proximity or special relationship with Pamela sufficient to impose a duty to warn her of Soman's intention. Public policy favoring protection of confidential character of a patient psychotherapist communication must yield to the extent to which disclosure is essential to avoid danger to others. Protective privilege ends where the public peril begins. Okay. Therapists and regents of university are liable for breach of duty to exercise reasonable care. Soman only once expressed the desire to kill Pamela. Such kinds of feelings are normal in any mentally ill. Moreover, patient, moreover, information received during a counseling session is confidential in nature, and so therapists cannot reveal it to the parents of Pamela. So, if I look at the principles here, conversations between a doctor and patients are generally considered confidential, but there are a few exceptions. ठीक है? और इसमें कौन सा प्रिंसिपल अप्लाई होगा? ड्यूटी ऑफ केयर इज अ लीगल ऑब्लिगेशन व्हिच इज imposed on an individual requiring adherence to the standard of reasonable care while performing any acts it could. ठीक है. Right, so what should be the answer here, guys? What do you think should be the answer? Please write down on the chat box. What do you think should be the answer here, guys? Tanvi, if your answer is for this, you are absolutely correct. Rick, spot on. Tarushi, this was for previous question or this question, Rick? Vaibhav, you are correct. Guys, remember you are supposed to choose the incorrect option here. Yes, Tanvi, you are correct here. Right, so very simple question, and we are not supposed to waste too much time here. What are you supposed to do? You are just supposed to choose the incorrect option here. Now, speaking of ABC, all of these are flowing from the principle. You know, breach of duty to exercise reasonable care flowing from the principle. Public policy may confidential character due to the extent to which disclosure is essential to avoid danger. Very generic statement, and it again flows from the principle. Protective privilege ends where the public peril begins. Police did not have the requisite proximity or special relationship with the family of Pamela sufficient to impose a duty to warn her of Soman's intention. Again, it's quite logical here. What is the thing which is incorrect? Of course, D. Why? Because if Soman had expressed the desire to kill Pamela, it should have been the duty of the therapist to have informed the police to take care of it. It did not. So the fifth principle, which talks about the doctor and patient relationship, and it also says that it could be done or breached in an exceptional case. So here it is an exceptional case. To kill somebody is of course exceptional. So of course D will be the correct answer here. Right, so on and so forth. Since we don't have much time, I'll take just one more principle fact-based question, and then probably we'll move to the legal GK question. So let's look at one of the many legal principle. बहुत सारे जिसमें legal principles होते हैं, थोड़ा कम fact होता है, उसको देखते हैं. So let's look at here. Now, what are you how your approach should be when it comes to multiple principles? Do not go ahead and read all the principles पहले. Go ahead and look at the facts. क्योंकि facts are easier to grasp. 2018 police officer Suresh Singh shot and killed Dayal. Now, always remember, guys, whenever you are reading facts, try and extricate irrelevant information, right? 2018 might not be relevant for you. Police officer could be relevant. Suresh Singh shot and killed Dayal is the most relevant thing in the entire sentence. So my brain will retain Suresh Singh has shot and killed Dayal, right? and Suresh Singh Gupta was the police officer. After the officer was convicted for culpable homicide not amounting to murder, Dayal's family retained a lawyer, Kaushal, to represent them in civil litigation against the officer. In a magazine called Indian Open Anti-Communist Society, accused Kaushal of being a Naxalite and a communist fronter because he chose to represent clients who were suing a law enforcement officer. Because the statement contains serious inaccuracies, Kaushal filed a libel action against the editors of the magazine. Decide whether he will succeed. Now let's look at the principle. Public official can recover damages for defamation on matter of public concern only if he proves that the speaker acted with actual malice. Defamation encompasses both written libel and blah blah blah. Mere vulgar abuse is not defamation. Statement must tend to lower the claimant in the estimation of rightful thinking members of the society. And then the general definition of defamation. So, what according to you should be the answer here? Guys, what should be the answer here? Alka, you are correct. Also, guys who are joining us for the first time, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. A lot of interesting stuff is going to come and is made basically for your advantage. So, do subscribe it. Coming back, what should be the answer here? Here the answer is D. Rick is again correct. Vanshika is also correct. Tanisha, no, B is not the correct answer. So here we have to understand that the statement itself was defamatory. Why would you call somebody a Naxalite and a communist fronter? Why would you call an advocate that if he is choosing to represent a client who was suing a law enforcement officer? Right, so you cannot do things like that, and if somebody does that, of course, and it contained a lot of inaccuracies as well. So as it is lowering the reputation of the person in front of the rightful thinking members of the society, coupled with the fact that the statement contains serious inaccuracies. So of course the correct answer here will be D. The statement is defamatory. Right, so this is how you're supposed to go about it. Not see, when it comes to AILET, you have to understand that AILET ka question paper is slightly difficult in the sense that you will require a lot of practice, especially when it comes to higher level of questions. So as you might have seen already, that there are questions which are flowing directly from the topic. So if you read a podcast, a basic sub-subject like negligence, you might come across a few topics or a few questions which are एकदम simple. No need to apply brain. But here AILET में analytical reasoning is being tested. थोड़ा सा preconceived knowledge, थोड़ा सा practice will make a huge difference that way. You have to be extremely alert. You have to be extremely spot on when it comes to applying the actual principle to the fact. So there are multiple principles given. There could be a possibility wherein the actual principle is being completely oblivious to you. You are not using the actual principle, using something else, and then coming up with the wrong answer. That should not be the case. You are supposed to do that, but then to gradually improve it, it has to be practice and nothing else when it comes to AILET. Try and start solving advanced level concept questions. Only then you will be able to solve questions. Also, the other thing when it comes to AILET is in the legal reasoning question, they are not testing you on the contemporary legal issues. All the static bits when it comes to, and especially AILET has the the format is such that it has a tendency to ask you questions a lot on thought that way. Thought contact से questions भर भर के आते हैं. So always try and have a knack to these difficult thought contract questions, extricating the contemporary legal issues which you might find useful for common law admission test. राइट सो एलिट का लीगल रीजनिंग के लिए थोड़ा प्रैक्टिस करना पड़ेगा यू विल हैव टू पुट इन सम वर्क सम लेबर एंड प्रैक्टिस इज द ओनली वे wherein you will be able to make sense or solve these difficult legal reasoning questions in AILET. Now let's look at some of the legal GK questions. Which of the following states have passed a bill providing for life imprisonment, fine up to INR 5 lakhs against accused in case of mob lynching leading to death of victim? So this is Rajasthan. Where was this question from? If you could have, if you are reading Indian Express, Hindu, and reading a few SCC online articles, that is more than sufficient when it comes to answering these kind of questions. We will look at these sources, but then abhi ke liye, when it comes to legal GK bit in AILET, there are things which are directly coming from the newspaper. So be extremely careful. Or CLAT ke liye, of course, you are taking pain to get abreast with the contemporary legal issues. So that way, AILET ka legal GK is covered more or less. Because AILET ka legal GK is slightly less difficult than CLAT ka contemporary passage-based questions. But having said that, AILET ka traditional negligence का question, contract का question, tort का question, criminal law का question will be again slightly difficult and will require some mind, you know, application to solve them. Right? So simple questions like these, strength of judges in Supreme Court has increased from 31 to 34. September, High Court, which High Court held the right to have access to the internet as a part of fundamental right to education, right to privacy under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. So this is Kerala. You are just supposed to follow a few blogs for that matter, or maybe a few websites like Live Law will help you, SCC Online will help you, but make sure that you have this diet. अगर आप बस इंडियन एक्सप्रेस और हिंदू पढ़ रहे हो तो लॉ एंट्रेंस एग्जामिनेशन अच्छे वाले नहीं निकलने वाले हैं so make sure you are expanding your diet to read SCC online के few articles live law के few articles a few Bloomberg Quint Wire के थोड़े बहुत articles law octopus थोड़ा बहुत देख रहा हूँ so holistic reading of contemporary legal issues is something which AILET is looking to answer. And then, of course, when it comes to the other legal GK ka question, constitution becomes extremely important because CLAT has a habit of testing you on the things which are there in the constitution. So, article may you might be tested a few provisions in the constitution which require thoda, matlab, which are slightly lengthy. So, anti-defection law, या कोई amendment हुआ है which has changed the constitution or some schedule which has been brought recently all of it is required for you to get into AILET. So prior knowledge of constitution becomes extremely important. So before improving your static in any other subject, try and make sure that you are making notes when it comes to the important provisions of the Constitution of India. Right. All right, and of course, international news as well. Some international news might be asked, especially if it was of legal relevance. So always keep an eye for news which are of legal relevance. Be it the recent, impeachment which was happening of Trump, or US में legal elections को लेकर के जो regulations में problem हुई थी, all of that. So have an eye when it comes to the international affairs, especially when the legal provisions are being invoked. Right. So yeah. So this was it. Now, before giving you advice, before giving you tips for AILET 2021, I would like to take a few questions. So feel free to ask me questions, be it on the chat box of YouTube or here on Zoom. I will be more than happy to take a few questions here. Vanshika, not required. Do not buy law journals. Online material is more than enough. Try and look out for these websites. Live Law will help you. Law Octopus will help you. SCC Online will help you. How to increase in accuracy in legal reasoning? Satya, a very good question. Here, practice is something which is important, but then the way you practice is also important. So I have seen a lot of mentors simply saying कि भाई passage based question को practice करो, you'll be able to come up with an answer. But then analysis of what went wrong. So whenever you are practicing a question, look at what your reasoning is. Look at the justification. अगर answer दे रखा है तो उसका justification समझो. Try and match your reasoning even if it is correct, because here choosing a correct answer is not the correct way of going about a question. Understanding the logic is something which will come in come for a very long run when it comes to solving the AILET ka questions. So try and see how the examiner or wherever your source of question is, what is the exact justification of the answer. Try and align that with your own justification. Try and understand the concept that ways. Okay, this will definitely help you. One question was repeated answer for the same. Yes, Vanshika, that can happen since the interpretation, especially when it comes to law, is slightly different for different people. So that can happen. But then that happens in a very, very few questions. So 1-2% inaccuracy रहती है when it comes to questions. So possibility of 2015 का answer incorrect, 2019 का answer incorrect can also be there. इंग्लिश में बहुत गलत आते हैं. Yes, Vedant. So again, having said that, I'm sure you are preparing for common law admission test, and there's how your ability, your predilection to improve English will have to put in, will ask some effort, some diligent efforts from you. So try and read, try and solve as many questions as possible. Try and get accustomed to the knowledge, to the legal jargons. This will really help you. Anamika, uh, how would you focus on completing syllabus and taking coaching, or practicing questions and taking mocks? Completion of syllabus is ज़्यादा practicing is something which will be extremely important, Anamika. So when you are done with a particular topic, do not go and jump to another topic. My advice would be to finish the entire topic by solving questions. So do that. That will really help you, and then move to another topic. Try and finish the syllabus by solving as many questions of that specific topic, and then only move to another topic. Hope it helps. All right, let's look at some Zoom questions now. What articles do you read on live law? Because there is a myriad of information. What do you need for an entrance examination? Superb question, Rajshri. Here's how you should go about reading articles. Now, the moment you are reading articles, you are supposed to understand that while reading one blog or website or anything, you can try in other blogs and websites as well. So here's how the importance of a particular topic will come into your eyes. So the moment you have seen that this article is being repeated in another similar website. So if I were to compare SEC Online, Live Law will be slightly similar. Law Octopus, Blog IP Readers could be slightly similar. So pick out two websites for that matter. Try and scheme out the important articles that you will find common in more or less every website you are reading. So that's how you get to know what is exactly important, what is not. Passage based questions, again, if you look at various IMSK questions or Bahar B, you will find a lot of things being included in these passages specifically. So, for instance, the bills, GST, budget, all of these are relevant legal information which is required by you to be read. So, and you getting abreast is something which they are expecting. Right. Bar and bench is also good, Weber. You can definitely try this. Okay. All right. Now let's look at some of the tips. I'll quickly wind up the session and then probably answer a few questions and then wind up the entire session. So of course, past year question solving becomes important. How does it become important? Because it will give you a clue of what kind of difficulty is there when you are facing AILET in actual exam. right? So here difficulty assessing is extremely important, because how you will deal and the amount of time which will take to solve a normal principal fact based question will be extremely difficult when you compare it to AILET principal fact based question, which will require you to read and concentrate more intensely. So make sure you are going ahead and reading the past year papers. That is an extremely important thing. And the fact that a lot of other examinations have a habit of repeating and benchmarking these important examinations. So CLAT, AILET are considered to be the most difficult and most sought after examination for that matter. So a lot of other examinations, they pick up questions from past year AILET ka paper and past year CLAT. So make sure that you are going ahead and solving the past year paper. That will definitely give you a clue of the difficulty level, right? As said, somebody asked me whether they should be taking mocks before even reading anything. My advice would be do not do that. Try and have a fair bit of information before solving mock. Although there are mocks available on your MyMS portal wherein you do not require any prior preparation. So these are zero prep mocks which are available on your MyIMS portal. But then before solving them, just have a look at the past year question paper. Try and gauge what exactly is the difficulty level, and then go ahead and solve mocks. Now, mock ka the most important bit is to understand how you have fared. So make sure that you consult a person or you devote some time in analyzing how you have performed in mock. So this is how you will be able to improve your performance. Constant solving of mocks, staying in the same time this thing and scoring the same marks would not help you. Seek out a help of a mentor, take a help of any law mentor or anyone for that matter. You can mail me on aditya.shekhar@imsindia.com. I will help you out, but then try and analyze your mock performance, because that will really help. And then timing yourself. Timing, I mean, while solving a normal passage based question or a normal principal fact based question, especially when it comes to IELTS difficulty, try and see how much time you are taking. So for a normal principal fact based question, you might have taken 1.5 minutes. For AILET, initially you will take somewhere around 1.5 minutes to 1.45 1 minute 45 seconds. You will have to reduce it. Now the reduction has to be done in a manner that you are taking some 25 to 28 minutes to solve 25-26 questions. But then that is extremely important. So do that. First will be past year paper analysis. Second will be mock solving and post mock analysis, and then of course timing. Your normal exercises, normal practicing is again extremely important. Here are the sources. So Supreme Court cases, relevant newsworthy landmark cases, bills, committees, commissions, personalities, removals, resignations, judges in landmark cases, static legal GK, Constitution of India. I told you the importance of Constitution of India in the exam in an examination like AILET. Legal maxims, of course, are important. Sath mein legal phrases also becomes extremely important. And then moving to miscellaneous bit, wherein family law, or intellectual property law, or any other miscellaneous law information is important. So AILET has a habit of, remember this guys, AILET has a habit of testing you on new laws. So be aware of the new laws which have been passed by the country. So that way you will be able to solve at least a couple of questions for sure, because they keep on asking what are the relevant laws passed by the Parliament of India or any state for that matter, right? So PRS, live law, SEC online, bar and bench, all of it becomes extremely important. Do not get confused with all the resources. Just pick two. उससे ज़्यादा आपको मत लेना है, right? So make sure that you are picking just two online websites when it comes to your legal miscellaneous information or contemporary legal issues. Otherwise, you will get confused, and otherwise it will create a problem. And I told you the importance of taking two websites as well, because that way you'll be able to assess what exactly is important. So if something is coming in both the websites, of course that becomes extremely important. All right, so that's it, guys. These are the sessions which are coming up. 8:15, you'll have another session of GK, wherein Weber will be coming and teaching you how to basically prepare for GK when it comes to AILET. We have critical reasoning and English session tomorrow. Links will be available. It will be again broadcasted on YouTube. So people who are not able to get the links, we would request them to stay put, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You will get that link on our YouTube channel happening from 7 to 9 tomorrow. Then we will have a All India Open Online AILET mock, which will happen on 11th of March. And then we will analyze this AILET in front of you. All right. So that basically sums up what exactly I wanted to say to you guys. I'll be more than happy to take a few questions. Do write your feedback for the session on the chat window if you don't have any questions, be it on your YouTube live chat window or on your Zoom chat box. If you can write some feedback, that will definitely help us improve on our session, and we will try and incorporate all the feedbacks as well. If you have any questions, I would request you to stay put and write questions. I'll be dealing with each and every question of yours. All right, I was solving, so I was starting with Vanshika. I've already, I think, answered your 2015 wala question. How much time should we spend on an exam prep per day? Doctor, a good question. So if you are writing your boards, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours is something which will be sufficient. If you are not writing your boards, I would suggest you to start preparing for 5 to 6 hours initially, and then probably while the examination is approaching in the 1.5 months which will be left, you can push to at least 8 to 10 hours. That is the amount of time which I am looking from a diligent student, from a serious aspirant. Will I am a student get past year AILET question papers? Aditya, it's available online. It's free of cost. Just write past year paper AILET, you will get it online. Sir, I'm behind in terms of current affairs. I was struggling in the mock. How can I overlap this lag? Rick, for you and for students like you, we have kept another session with Vaibhav Prakash, who will be coming right now. 8:15 में वो session होने वाला है. On YouTube as well, you can have access. You can ask the question to Vaibhav. He will be able to answer, because current affairs is something which will be dealt in the next session. Sir, is it possible in any way to provide the AILET past year paper? Tanisha, it is already available online, but I'll still try if we can come with something of that sort, will definitely come. It is quite difficult to solve them on the portal and time consuming. What are the sources to prepare mainly for AILET? I told you, Karthikeyan. So, past year paper would be something you should start your preparation with to gauge what kind of questions are coming. Basic understanding of all the concepts. So, when it comes to LA, of course, you're supposed to understand what exactly is taught may be it negligence, defamation, malicious prosecution, nuisance, all of it has to be covered. Then you move to criminal law, constitution, miscellaneous bits like family law, intellectual property rights. So concepts, make sure that you are done with the basic concepts. Move to contemporary legal issues, which you can get from various websites like Live Law, PRS, Bar and Bench, and SCC Online. Right? If you're not there in any coaching institute, a book called Universal might also help you. Yes. Vanshika, I told you, try and figure out what is relevant by understanding. See, relevant could be. What else you can do is you can check our weekly law scoop, which comes every weekend, right? So that way, the important law updates are covered there. So you can always take a reference from that, see what KP has to teach, and then probably research a bit about the topics, right? So you can start with that. So I always feel difficult in English and quantitative sections. Namrata, a very relevant question, but if I advise you on that, that would not be fair on my part. Precisely why we have put separate sessions, so you can ask your English and quantitative section teacher who will be going live tomorrow. So request you to stay here, request you to subscribe to our channel and come back from 7 to 9. We'll be taking quantitative section and English section ka strategy. Right. Yes, of course, Jay, it is possible. Make sure that you have a plan. Go ahead again to sum the entire session. How do you want to go about it? try and start with past year paper analysis, wherein you are looking at the past year papers, try and figure out what are the relevant topics. Now, according to me, concept reading becomes extremely important in AILET. Why? Because they are testing you difficult questions on the basic concepts, right? So negligence, nuisance, criminal law ka specific instances of crime, voidable contract, pledge, bailment, all of it becomes extremely important. Not many concepts to study, but then make sure that you are reading the concepts thoroughly. This you are supposed to do after going ahead and taking past year paper. Once you are done with the concepts, try and start looking at the contemporary legal issues. Try and look at specific articles when it comes to the constitution, amendments. तो ये सारे static portion का notes बनाना शुरू कर दो simultaneously once you have started clearing the concepts. ठीक है? Once you have done that, एक concept मान लो मैंने I start with tort, right? So I do basic tort, vicarious liability, strict liability, all of that I do. I start solving questions because that is extremely important. My concepts will become clear only after I have solved it. Once I have solved it, I look at the past year paper थोड़ा बहुत कि भाई past year paper में since I have initially only seen the past year paper, I know where is what. So I'll go back, take the reference, look at how the questions are, look at the explanations, look at the answers, and then I will make sure that I am done with a particular topic. So that way I will be able to finish all my concepts simultaneously. I'm making notes, constitution ka important articles, constitution ka important cases, some relevant case law which is going on, miscellaneous sessions में वीकली लॉ स्कूप में देख रहा हूँ. सब्सक्राइब टू आवर चैनल. हर सैटरडे को 8:30 से 9 KP आते हैं and he talks about what exactly has happened in the week. You are doing that, but then you are detailed में you are also starting that through various websites. SEC Online will help. All of these websites will help. After you are certain with some basic preparation, you start solving mocks. Now mocks should be done. मतलब initially थोड़ा कम करना. For the next month, especially for people who don't have their boards, try and solve maybe 3-4 mocks in the next month, but then try and increase it to the extent that you are solving 4-5 mocks every month. So in the span of 3 months, I'm looking to solve at least 15-16 mocks before I take the actual AILET. And after every mock, I analyze my performance. I analyze my sectional cutoffs, my sectional performance, and I discuss it with the mentor. That's the way of going and gradually improving your performance. And that's how you will improve and get to a level wherein you can basically get, or rather bag a seat when it comes to NLU Delhi. Always remember, you are supposed to score somewhere around 80 to 85. That will be the extent of it as far as we have seen when it comes to the cutoff marks for AILET. उससे ज़्यादा नहीं आएगा. So आपको अपना performance उसी के हिसाब से करना है. For some mocks, again, they are quite difficult. So again, we are looking at a score of 75 to 80. But then your average should be somewhere between 75 to 90. This is the exact marks which I'm looking to score in math in my mock. Right? So that is the kind of approach I would have, and make sure that you are having a constant look at the kind of scores which you have gotten in your mocks, and keep on improving in your mocks, and you will definitely bag a seat in NLU Delhi. So that's it, guys. Please write a feedback if possible on the chat box, be it on YouTube, be it on Zoom. We will, yes, Jay, we have a crash course running. You can basically inquire on www.imsindia.com. We will be available there. Or for any other information, you can go ahead and do that. We are also on Telegram. You can find the link on YouTube. So all of that, and I wish you all the very best when it comes to LA, strategy. I will be taking another LA mock test solving on 12th of March. So would request you to join me again on 12th of March. We will meet again. So all right, lovely interacting and lovely to see so many serious aspirants. I wish you all the best, and I wish you that you get a seat in NLU Delhi. All right, guys. Bye. Take care.